In this video, we'll go over how I like to approach the pregame conversation in my Commander games to ensure that the pod that I'm in has very clear expectations of what the game we're about to play is. And if you enjoy this content, make sure that you like and subscribe. Rule 0. The pregame conversation. Games that go on for 3 hours. Playing a lot of cards but not really doing anything. All of these topics we have kind of covered on this channel. At Deck Driver, I love talking about the actual playing of Commander. I love the deck techs and I love getting creative with the decks that I make, but I also love talking about Commander, how it's played, and kind of the philosophy around a 4-player game that's different every time. It's not like something like Settlers of Catan or Twilight Imperium, where you get the same game every time, with a few variations here and there. This is a game where every single game you play is completely unique. Every deck is different. Every deck runs totally different than one another. Even if it's one card off, that can be an entirely different game. Each starting hand creates so much variation. Everything about it is different every time. So because of this, talking about the actual game and how you can set your expectations of the game is something super important to me. And today we're talking about what I like to call the EDH Dilemma. So, in case you haven't heard of the prisoner's dilemma, it goes something like this. You and your partner in crime have been captured, and now you're being interrogated, but you're being interrogated separately. Now, the police basically put you in a room and they say, if you narc on your friend, you will not go to prison at all. But if you stay silent and they narc on you, you'll get 10 years. If neither of you narc, you both will only get 1 year because maybe they can just fudge some evidence and give you both prison time. But if both of you narc, you both get 5 years. So with this dilemma, this is a very common thing used in game theory, used all across the world as sort of a no-win scenario. Because every player in this game is incentivized to narc, because no matter what you do, you're going to lose. If you don't narc, you either get 1 year in prison or you most likely get 10 years in prison. And because you can't necessarily trust the people around you, everyone should narc every time. Now, of course, this is presupposing that you don't trust each other, which we'll get into that. But if you assume you can't trust your partner in crime, then the goal is to always narc. So how does this relate to EDH? Well, let's say you're sitting down at a table with 3 other strangers. You've never played with these people before. You don't know expectations of power level. You don't know expectation of decks. You don't know expectation of the types of game we play. Are we going to play fun, fair magic where we try to win through combat damage? Are we going to try to mill each other out? Are we going to try to combo off? Are we trying to control the game? There's so many different ways to play this game and so much variation that a lot of times expectations need to be clearly communicated, and sometimes they just aren't, and that's okay. Here is the EDH dilemma. Let's say you all want to win. The clear goal is to win. All 4 players decide, hey, I want to win. Well, this in most cases gives you the clearest expectations of what the goals are of the game. Everyone at the table is trying to come home with a win. They're probably going to play some powerful decks. Combos are probably okay. Counterspells are okay. This is typically where you get the higher powers of Commander. Now, of course, it's more of a mindset, so you could get precons that try to win the game because it's definitely more of a mindset. But in most cases, you're going to have higher power pods. They're all trying to win. The only downside that could possibly happen is if you have a consistent play group with this kind of strategy and everyone wants to win, it potentially becomes a little bit of an arms race of who can make the best deck or the most expensive deck. But for the most part, if everybody wants to win and everyone's trying to win, then you get very clear expectation of what you're trying to do. And in most cases, people are getting what they want out of the experience, even if they lose. Now, let's say one player wants to win and the rest of the pod wants a casual experience. Or let's say 2 players want to win and the rest of the pod wants a casual experience. This is typically the worst outcome that you could get. 1 player or 2 players will typically just dominate the entire board. Players in most cases will feel like they may have wasted their time, or they just walk away with kind of a bad taste in their mouth. They just wanted to sit down and play some Magic. And 2 people, or maybe 1 person, or maybe even 3 people, all are trying to win the game, and the expectations of what's going to happen are all skewed from one another. I've been on the receiving end of this, where I've wanted to play a casual game, and instead the people around me kind of wanted to go for a win, and I just kind of got left in the dust in my pod. This did not feel so good. Now, I've also been on the other end, unknowingly. I go into a pod, I believe that the intention is to win the game, where the people around me wanted more of a casual experience, and I kind of just dominated the game, and at the end of it, I also felt bad. This is the scenario that we don't want to end up in. As long as we can avoid these scenarios where expectations are different, do we want to have a fun casual experience or do we want to win? If we can avoid this at all costs, that is what we're looking for. Now, of course, the last one is, let's say everyone wants a fun, casual experience. Now, I would say out of the 3 options that we could possibly get, this is the second best option, at least for me. For me, I love trying to go for a win, so I would obviously want the first option. But in the second option, you still have a better expectation of what the goals are. Everyone is here to have fun. We want to cast our spells, we want to play the game, we want to be able to do the thing that our deck does. Whether we win or not is not really important. I just want to play my Druid tribal deck. I just want to play my Cleric tribal deck. I want to get off this really funny 2-card combo that doesn't win the game, but it just does something really funny. Whatever it is, this is still a better expectation of what the goals are for your pot, which is why it's pretty great. The only downsides to this probably is that sometimes it leads to very, very long games, because if the goal is not necessarily to win, then sometimes winning doesn't ever happen. And then, of course, some of the problems is what constitutes fun. It might still end up with some confusion of expectation. A player like me, I find winning very fun. So even in a casual experience, I still would like to win. I still would like my deck to run properly and do the right things so that I can get advantages, because I find that fun. Some people might not find that fun. Some people might want to build a deck that specifically wants to lose as fast as possible, and that's totally cool. So that's where sometimes the confusion of expectations could probably happen, where we want to have a fun casual experience, but what constitutes fun? So this is what I like to call the EDH dilemma. Now, both options 1 and 2 are great. They're awesome. I would love this every single time. Option 3 of not clear expectations is what we're trying to avoid at all costs. So how do we do that? Here are 3 things that I would personally do in your play group or with the people that you're playing against so that you can avoid this altogether, and you can always have clear expectations of what you guys are going to do for your commander pod. So 1, find a consistent play group through Discord or in person at your LGS. Number 1, find a consistent play group through Discord or in person. This allows you to understand the overall experience and power level these players are looking for in a game. When I play with my play group, I already know what we're trying to go for. I know who's trying to win. I know the power levels of the decks that we're looking at, and I know how well they're going to do it. And I know I can play my best decks that I have the most fun playing, and we can all kind of go at each other. It's really fun. Typically, it's really balanced as well, because if we're all trying to win, then we're all trying to stop each other from winning at the same time too. And so it's not an unbalanced thing of maybe I'm 1v1ing somebody. We're all trying to win, and we all have really good decks. So it's a very fun environment to play in. It's almost like CEDH, but not with the speed or power of CEDH, just a little bit below. Now, of course, we still like playing CEDH, but this is just sometimes we like to get creative. So a consistent play group is number 1. Number 2, build different versions of your favorite commanders. This is so that you can play your favorite commander in just different setting. I love my Ishaitana deck, but it's very, very powerful and is supposed to be played in these high power pods that are very competitive. It gets me a lot of wins and it's a lot of fun. But if I were to play this in a casual setting, there's no way. I would 100% be that person that's ruining the pod, because I'm playing at a much higher power level than the other decks around me probably. And I have different expectations. So I still want to play Ishai, but I just don't want to dominate the table like I would with my other deck. So I made Ishai Kodama, a group hug strategy that can still have nice payoffs for Ishai. I can still make a very big commander and swing it at you, but it's able to play in a more casual setting because it's more of a group hug strategy. It invites the players to play the game. They get a lot of advantages. Ishai now gets advantage because with people playing more of the game, they are playing more spells, which means Ishai gets bigger. And then Kodama also allows me to cheat out some cards because it gets me a lot more mana. If I play something that's 5, I get to put something that's 4 or less onto the battlefield as well, which it ends up just being more group hug payoffs. This functions a lot better in a casual environment. Because they're getting more resources, they now have more ways of getting rid of Ishai. So Ishai is not as crazy of a problem, but we're all still able to just play the game, and Ishai can still do what he needs to. So 2, build different versions of your favorite commanders. And now 3, when building and playing, the more knowledgeable you are of what your deck does, how well it functions, and what turn you typically can present a win or pull off a win, and the efficiency at which it runs is so important. This is why in my deck text, I try to give very clear game plans, play lines, and turn count, so any pilot that might want to build the deck themselves can already be equipped with this knowledge. Understanding what your deck does is crucial to having clear expectations that you can give to your opponent. When it's you and 3 other players, you have to understand that the expectations of those 3 players are a bit more important than your expectations, simply because there's more people. And if you look at it from a, I guess, utilitarian stance, if everyone wants to have a good time playing the game and not waste their time, it's always important for you to cater a bit more to the other 3 players, which means if they're following the same logic, they would cater to you as well. So it's a very healthy balance of expectations, figuring out how we're going to play the game, and of course, being able to have a good experience when playing EDH. So you need to know what your deck does so you can give those clear expectations. So those are the 3 things that I would say you should do if you're looking to have a fun time and avoid this third evil option of not clear expectations. Now, you might say that a pregame conversation with this level of detail isn't necessary or is too much work to ask for, but I would 100% disagree. With a social format of 4 players in a pod, if you all want to have a good time, you have to participate in something like this, at least a little bit. You should always consider the fact that there's 3 other players in the pod and only one of you. So like I said earlier, you would want the other 3 players to have a good experience, so you should cater a little bit more towards what they might want to do. And because of this, if everyone follows this logic, it balances out that way. Now, if your goal is not to participate in this, you're potentially ruining the experience for 3 other people, which is a net negative. You might have a fun time, but if the other 3 people aren't, why does it matter? Now, of course, at the end of the day, if you don't want to have this conversation, it's honestly not a big deal. If I'm being honest, you probably will ruin a couple of games here and there, but you might just want to trial and error this kind of stuff, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it's still something you can do. Of course, once you find a pod that you have all the same expectations and you find people that you can consistently play with, this conversation doesn't even need to happen. With the play group that I play with most consistently, we don't need to ask, hey, what does your deck do? Hey, are you trying to win? Are you trying to combo? In most cases, we understand the expectation is to win, and we understand that no matter what deck is put in front of us, it's probably going to do it pretty well. So having a consistent pod, which is the first rule on my list, is extremely important to have, because then this conversation doesn't even need to happen. And you can just have fun playing your commander decks on a nice night of casual commander. So I hope this has helped you, or maybe given you some ideas of what you would like to do in your next commander pod. And I hope you found some enjoyment in this video. I hope it was informative, and I hope my points were clear and concise. If you did enjoy this content, please feel free to like and subscribe and comment down below what your favorite deck is. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching.